So we have this big cottonwood tree over above this pond here, and it drops tons and tons of these just cottonwood tree leaves into the water, and they accumulate in a thick layer on the bottom every single fall and then decompose and become a nice muddy layer at the bottom. And I'd watched this really interesting video where they were making these giant kimchi pots, and they were using a glaze that was made out of decomposed organic material that they would just throw into this huge tub and they would let it rot. And the glaze looked pretty similar to just like pond mud. So I want to do an experiment. I've got a cup that's pretty featureless. I'm gonna go cut a hole in the ice and dig up some of that mud, and we'll bring it back and we'll coat the cup with it a couple times and just run it through the kiln and see if it ends up firing in any interesting way. Because if you could use that as like a natural glaze, it'd be really fun to do some primitive pottery using pond mud glazes, or even like some river or creek mud glazes. So I don't know, we're gonna try it out here. Look how thick this ice is. This is some thick ice. We're not quite to the bottom yet. Gotta go a little more, but that's probably it's pretty thick. Got the hole through, and I've just got this piece of pipe which I've shoved down into the mud, and hopefully we can just bring that up and it be didn't quite pull a plug. I don't want to stick my arm down there, but I might have to. I'll mess with this a little more and see if I can't get some up with this piece of pipe. So I pushed it in at an angle, and this time I was able to get a plug of mud out. Let's just have a look at it here. Got a little bit of ice, but for the most part just straight up black mud. Should be pretty much just biodegraded leaves and stuff. So we'll take that back, and that should be enough to do the cup as a test. Alright, so let's have a little closer look at this mud. So I think that this side was up, that side was down. And I don't think I want the bottom. Interesting how it's... Oh look, you can totally see... You can see it's like totally decaying leaf litter. And see the actual leaves imprinted in it, which is kind of cool. So I don't want the bottom layer because that has rocks in it. I can feel there's some like sand. But moving up from there, that feels kind of gritty too. Like there might be some sand in it. See that, how it's kind of gray? So I'm just going to try to take the stuff that's more black like this, and that doesn't really have sand in it, and I'll just kind of spread a layer of that on. Kind of messy, and this stuff definitely kind of smells gross. You want to smell it? Mm-hmm. But yeah, we'll see. I might just turn this cup into garbage, or it might make it interesting. This is one that I made a while back, and the handle actually broke off. So we still bisque fired it, but it's kind of the sort of cup that's perfect for doing experiments on because it's just very plain. The mud did end up being a little bit grittier than I expected, and it probably would have been a good idea to mix it up and strain off all of the larger particles and just kind of end up with like a fine slurry. I was too impatient, however, to do that, so I just continued spreading it on, trying to remove all of the larger particles that were kind of in it, which is why there's all those finger smears. So here it is. It's kind of a rough coating. There was a lot more like bits of rock and stuff in here than I expected. So I think ideally I would collect a sample of mud more like from the middle of the pond, where it's less far from the beach area. But we'll just fire it, see what it does. If there are a few little bits of, rock in there, they might cause it to spalt, but I'm just curious if it will do anything interesting at the temperature that we're firing to. It'll also be interesting to see what color it is, and if it even sticks to the cup. it already appears to be drying to like a gray color. Like, it was really black, but now it's turning kind of like light gray almost. Here it is, all dried next morning. Noticing there's a couple spots where it cracked, like right there. I have a feeling that's just gonna flake off in the kiln. Right there's pretty flaky. It's probably not great. I almost want to try putting some like clear coat on it, or maybe some borax or something to kind of help it become a fluxed glaze, because I don't know if it's actually going to melt into any kind of glaze. It'll probably just be a rough, weird looking plant pot sort of thing. So here's the experimental pond mud cup. I'm going to stick it in the kiln with everything else and see what happens to it. Code 04. So the pottery is still, depending on where you check, it's like 300 degrees on the shelf, and like on this upper pottery, like right there, it's only like 250, but still too warm, I think, to take out. So now that the pottery's cold enough, everyone's gonna come over and unload with us.
We're here!
Hi! Since there were a lot of neat cups, the reaction to this particular one is very genuine when we actually pulled it out. Oh, yeah, that's an experiment. I dug up mud from the pond and I put it on the outside to just see what it would fire like.
That feels sandy.
Yeah, it feels pretty. So,
oh, so that's not Glaze.
It's just like
this is the black mud that you like play mud fights with. I just coated the outside with that.
Does it still smell like poop?
No, it did when I put it in the kiln though.
It just smells like.
It was like black.
Dusty.
So I have a video about this.
Weird.
But
Didn't like make it explode.
it's weird that it turned orange. I just wasn't really sure what color it would turn, but it just turned orange with like some weird colors in it.
That one's really cool.
Oh, look what the rocks did. Go on. It's like some rocks in it.
It's like it exploded.
So I think that if you wanted to use it as like an underglaze, you could probably put clear glaze over top, and it might make it kind of cool, but
Yeah.
as is kind of weird. So here's one more close look at it. And I don't know that I would do it again like this, at least just completely raw. So putting the clear coat or something over the outside, I do think wouldn't be a bad idea. I think that if you filtered it so that it didn't have these large particles, it would be more like the fine stuff that got on right here that was just stuck to my fingers. And I feel like that actually stuck to the pottery surprisingly well. So like right here on this part of the cup, it's pretty adhered. So where it's thicker, right there you can see a bigger piece chipped off of it. And up in here it's a really thick layer, but if I scrape on it with my fingernail, you can kind of see I get like a tiny bit of powder, almost like a brick, like the sort of fine material that bricks are made out of. That's sort of what it reminds me of. Here's those spots where it was cracked before it went in. And I'm guessing if you push on them, you can get them to break off. Oh, yep. See, so that did not adhere very well. And I think that kind of goes back to particle size, and the way I was applying it was just not very precise. So, would I do this again? Probably not. Unless I like mix it with some sort of clear glaze or something that's actually going to make it melt into a glassy surface. Maybe at a higher temperature it would do something different, but yeah. Still kind of interesting to see what color it turned and just how it looked. So if I think of some other interesting experiments or things to try with this, maybe I will revisit this like glaze from pond mud sort of concept. And I'll try to link in the description to that video that I was talking about that kind of inspired my idea of like actually trying this, because I thought it was very interesting. It has been super fun experimenting and learning as we go along, so you should subscribe if you want to learn with us as we test things out.